ChatGPT. So much going on.
OpenAI launched GPT-4 last week, and it's definitely scaring some people, including the CEO, Sam Altman. And if you want to use GPT-4 right now, you can only access it by signing up for ChatGPT+, which costs $20 a month.
I am paying for it. I told everybody on my team they can go pay for it. I literally had the sales team. I had producer Nick do a explainer, do a little demo of ChatGPT4, because we're doing this Launch Angel Summit again. This is where we get 100 angel investors to come together. We're going to do a live taping of All In at it. Should be great. And we play poker, and a bunch of angels and seed funds get together to trade notes. And I was like, who would you get to sponsor a summit of angel investors and seed funds? And it was like, I would go for banking, including SVB, Comerica, whatever. I would get law firms like Wilson Sonsini. I would get insurance providers like Embroker. I would get cloud providers like AWS and Azure. And literally, it gave me an answer of who to target as sponsors for the Angel Summit that included people who had previously sponsored the Angel Summit. And I was like, well, that is the SDR function. And in sales, we call that sales development rep, I think is what it stands for. And those are people who warm up leads, right? So now you can use GPT-4 and ask it, hey, who should sponsor This Week in Startups? Or I want to do an AI conference. Who would be great speakers? And then you can think about what the topics would be at your AI conference. And all that stuff in that brainstorming that would have occurred in a meeting, Rachel, now can occur in GPT-4. And you'll probably get 70, 80% of what would have happened in the meeting with 5 people.
Yeah.
And if you had hired a producer for your conference, probably will do 70 or 80% of what the producer would have done, or producers on this very podcast. So what does that mean? It means you could have, instead of having 3 producers, you could have 1 maybe. Or instead of 3, you could have 2 right now, which doesn't take a genius to realize that when we are writing notes for this very podcast, or sales executives are looking to find leads, that function will go away. And you could have 1 producer producing 3 times as much content, or 1 salesperson reaching out to 3 times as many contacts for sales. In other words, human efficiency is about to 3x. And you can see that with GitHub's Pilot or other folks who are writing code. The code demos for GPT-4 are extraordinary. Why is it extraordinary? Well, that corpus of programming is a very tight corpus of very repetitive activities. What does it mean? It means if you were writing a modern app, you would have a login screen. You would have a delete my account screen. You would have a change my password screen. You might have a feed, like an Instagram or Twitter feed. You might have turn on my GPS and tell me my location feed or function. You might have a messaging function, like, DMs on Twitter or on Instagram. Well, that code's been written, it's open sourced, and it's been indexed. And it's been indexed at a specific location, GitHub. And it's got a lot of participants over there who have edited, and they're open source projects. Therefore, something like a language model can really process that easily. Just like images have already been processed for so many years, perhaps decades, that it's very easy to say, hey, make me a Jedi. We know what a Jedi is. And then have them, instead of using a lightsaber, have them use, I don't know, a crossbow or a bow and arrow. Like it could make that pretty easily, because it's a corpus with images or code that is narrow and easy to iterate on and then do reinforcement learning on. So everybody will be 3 times more productive.
Yeah, don't worry, producers are their jobs are safe, because I hear it's not up to date with data past 2021. So
Good
until
point.
it gets that done, everyone's in the clear. Some other jobs, though, that might be getting taken away or might be able to do something else with their time were released by a research study with UPenn and Open Research. In the paper, they predicted what U.S. jobs will be impacted by LLMs, language learning models like GPT. It was really, really cool. And a Twitter user actually broke down the paper's major takeaways.
Okay.
Well, accounting for other generative models and complementary technologies, our human estimates indicate that up to 49% of workers could have half or more of their tasks exposed to LLMs. So research suggests that half of all of US jobs will be cut in half or made twice as efficient by LLM. That's crazy.
This makes total sense, because I just explained it with developers, SDRs, and producers of podcasts, right? So what's going to happen is something like AngelList or Crunchbase or LinkedIn, like will have their own built-in LLMs. And you'll be able to say, instead of using advanced search on Crunchbase or LinkedIn, like people are currently doing to find startups that have raised their seed funding, that are based in New York City, and that have founders who went to Stanford or an Ivy League school, right? Let's say that was your search. You could say, I want founders who are building startups at the seed stage in the Northeast that have at least one founder who went to an Ivy League school and that have had and have an app in the App Store, right? Okay, really, that would be something you would put an associate on or a researcher really at a venture firm. Well, that researcher will probably take a week, maybe put 50 hours into it. That same researcher will be able to do this in 1 hour or 2 hours, right? And they're going to have to do prompts. They're going to have to clean up the data. And then over time, they may not have to clean up the data. So maybe instead of a researcher doing it, an associate would do it. Maybe instead of an associate doing it, a principal, a managing director, or even the general partner at a firm could do it. But that's something we've seen already over time, and people are still thriving, and we have record low unemployment. So I'll take the other side of the bet, which is people will just be twice as efficient. We'll have twice as many products in the world, solving twice as many problems, and doing it for less money. Just like cloud computing meant, and fractional CTOs, outsourced HR, outsourced accounting, outsourced cloud computing, outsourced office space like WeWork, all of that didn't lower the number of startups. It increased the number of startups. And the amount of money it took to get a product to market went from being $3 million 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it would take maybe $2, $3 million to get an internet product to market. Then it went to 250, and then it went to 25K, and then it went to essentially free, just sweat equity, the time it takes for the two founders to produce something. And so all of this is amazing, which is why I'll be candid here and put a little plug in. It's why we started Founder.University, where we have 300 founders come, and for 12 weeks, we have them take all these courses, learn how to build companies, and at the end, we invest in 20 of the companies, 25K, to be their friends and family round. There will be many more people trying to build software that solves a problem in the world. And that means if there was going to be a niche piece of software for tennis players or pickleball players, those might have not been venture backable previously, but now they will be because they're going to cost a fraction to make. And you could make a really robust app instead of for $3 million a year, 20 people working in an app company. You're going to be able to do it instead of 20 people working for a modern app company, working on all platforms. You'll be able to do it with 5 people or 10 people, right? And then more flowers will grow. So I think nothing to worry about for now.
For now, but there's another takeaway that high-paying jobs are also having more exposure to LLMs and could be heavily impacted. So basically, the most exposed high-paying jobs involve programming and writing, and those are really, really easy for LLMs to replicate. And the least exposed high-paying jobs involve science and critical thinking, and these are harder for LLMs to replicate. So if you're a high-paying VC that invests in like life science companies and you need to use critical thinking, your job is safe. So shout out to Dave Friedberg there. But in the context of the paper, it defines exposure as, quote, a measure of whether access to GPT or GPT-powered systems would reduce the time required for a human to perform a specific DWA, detailed work activity, or complete a task by at least 50%. And then it included like a chart that the researchers measured how much exposure different job types would likely have to LLMs. And there you can see a bunch of different jobs. Scroll down all the bottom. You'll even see like search marketing strategists, which would be super helpful for like our team. So really cool chart to look at.
Just so people understand this chart, when it says 100%, that means 50% of the job can be done by ChatGPT or another language model. I think what this doesn't understand here, where it says like, this one is really exposed, accountants, auditors, news analysts, reporters, that doesn't mean the job goes away. It just means the job is going to be massively more efficient. And let me tell you something, there's things that journalists should be doing that they're not doing right now because they don't have enough time to report on stories, like calling the sources and checking the facts, like, maybe doing some analysis. So what this is going to do is it's going to free up time for people to be better at their jobs. So right now you have a large number of journalists who just rewrite stories by other people. They don't do any primary research. They don't call anybody on the phone. They don't ask people for their opinions. They don't have time for analysis. They don't have time to fact check. Well, if GPT-4 prepares a lot of information for them, and then they just go right into fact checking of what GPT-4 told it, that seems like a pretty good use of time. And we have an analogy for this, Rachel. People said when the Wikipedia came out, well, then you didn't need journalists, or you didn't need, college students, because they could just go to, or college students wouldn't be doing anything with their papers because they go to the page on China, they could go to the page on semiconductors, they go to the page on Taiwan and get all the relevant facts. Well, all ChatGPT is doing that faster. It's going to all the relevant facts and giving it back to you and letting you hit a button that says, make this easier to read. Make this like it's written for a 5-year-old. Make this like it's written for a graduate student. Rewrite this. Say it in less words. Say it more concisely. Be more verbose, right? You've seen those tools where you can, in Notion or other pieces of software, change the copy that's written. Well, a human used to do that. And they used to collect the facts, cut and paste them from Wikipedia, put them into a document and rewrite them. And I had to tell, inside.com folks, I don't want you cutting and pasting, rewrite it. You can get the facts from other places, of course, cite the facts and then rewrite it yourself. Never use the cut and paste function. All right, well, that's over. So what can you do? You can call people on the phone, you can check facts, and you can spend more time doing higher level functions. So let's say you were writing something about Taiwan Semiconductor and the chance of China invading Taiwan and what the impact of that would be. Well, GPT-4, you can't trust for that output right now, but you could trust it to give you the basic copy to set up the story. Well, now you can call 10 people because you have the time. Let's say you had 10 hours to write the story. You can go call 10 people for a half hour each and then spend 5 hours doing original reporting. So that's what this is going to do. I don't think people are going to just start laying people off at their company. I think they're going to do better work. So the sales team will be able to do 3 times as many leads, which means they should be able to sell 3 times as much.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen, is wild efficiency. So this study, I think, is a little bit, to use a word, catastrophizing.
Well, we know that BuzzFeed is definitely going to be doing exactly what you said, with their journalists going to be writing things that maybe are a little bit more in depth, because they announced that they were going to start doing their listicles, which I don't know if you've ever seen one of those where it's like the top 5 best pool floaties of the year. They're super random, but those are going to be done by ChatGPT. Just GPT technology. So that's going to be interesting seeing this one company pivot this early on. And last week, on the day GPT-4 was launched, OpenAI also did a live stream, and it featured the co-founder and president, Greg Brockman, and it tested some of the features. There's a 50-second clip that is pretty cool where he takes a photo.
Yeah, let's play this.
It's pretty neat.
I have here a nice hand-drawn mock-up of a joke website. So I'm just going to take out my phone, literally take a photo of this mock-up. All right, going to send it to our Discord. And now we wait. And so we can actually take now this output. So literally we just said to output the HTML from that picture. And here we go. Actual working JavaScript, filled in the jokes. For comparison, this was the original of our mockup. And so there you go, going from hand-drawn, beautiful art, if I do say so myself, to working website. And this is all just potential, right? You can see lots of different applications. We ourselves are still figuring out new ways to use this. So we're going to work with our partner. We're going to scale up from there, but please be patient because it's going to take us some time to really make this available for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, is it impressive or is it not impressive? I remember when HTML WYSIWYG editors came out, what you see is what you get. And people were blown away when Apple came out with a word processor in the, let's call it late 80s, 87, 88, 89. And you could then type something in and change the font and then print it on a Apple printer and have different fonts. Because up to that point, you had dot matrix, you only had one font. And you were like, wait a second, you would have to hire a printing company to use different fonts. Now the fonts are built into your computer. Whoa, this is just an extension of that. He's using OCR, optical character recognition, to WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, build a website, and then publish it. That's not, and write the code. It's not all that groundbreaking when you think about it. It's a collection of technologies building on top of it. What would be super impressive here is if it said, and then make 10 categories of jokes that are the 10 most popular categories of jokes. Go figure that out yourself. Dad jokes, inappropriate jokes, mom jokes, dad jokes, whatever. Then publish those jokes, allow people to add their own jokes, and then have a commenting system and a rating system and make it like Reddit. Now that would be like, whoa. Or if it just told you, hey, we built the website for you. Here are 10 more things you can add to this website. Would you like to add a voting system? Would you like to add comments? Would you like to add a share button? Would you like to have it produce a daily joke every day? Which, by the way, I bought the website aday.com to do this exact business, which I was going to do subdomain joke.a-day, recipe.a-day. And now that actually AI exists, I could probably just build that with ChatGPT and have it just come up with garbage and pollute the internet. And I think that's going to be the next thing here is the pollution of the internet. If you thought social media polluted the internet and spam and content websites and people in Manila writing just horrible articles and doing keyword stuffing, now imagine like people just take ChatGPT and tell it, buy 10 domains a day, build 100 websites a day, produce 1,000 articles a day, and then interlink between them. The pollution on the internet, it's going to be absolutely like a fog of just garbage out there. It's going to be like, how do we know this is real? And this is where we're going to need to have credentials matter. So every article, knowing a human wrote it versus a computer is going to become more and more important, and who the author. So I think authorship now in a world of pollution becomes more valuable. You could find a gazillion stories about tech or recipes. What's happening now, I think, Rachel, is those stories are going to pollute the internet so much that somebody who's authoritative, like Gordon Ramsay, or let's say CP from Nick's Fan TV, or just somebody, myself on seed investing, you on millennials and Gen Z culture, that authority and people who do Substacks or do podcasts, they become more valuable because now the average customer is going to be like, wait, who can I trust? Who's a real human who actually is thinking about this and who actually has authority or has wisdom or experience? So wisdom in a world of infinite garbage being produced for free, wisdom becomes the difference. Wisdom becomes the difference. So maybe you think Balaji, as we talked about in the first half of the show, is really smart. Well, now his intelligence or his catastrophizing, however you want to frame it, is or both. It could be both. Becomes more valuable. So all of this makes the actual elite people in the world more valuable because average is now infinite. The average production of content, the average production of opinions is just a commodity.
Sam Altman, the CEO and co-founder, was interviewed by ABC News reporter Rebecca Jarvis on Friday, and he didn't talk about journalists very much, but he did talk about his biggest fears with OpenAI, and it's a pretty wild 60-second clip.
We've got to be cautious here. And also, I think it doesn't work to do all this in a lab. You've got to get these products out into the world and make contact with reality, make our mistakes while the stakes are low. But all of that said, I think people should be happy that we're a little bit scared of this. I think people should be
You're
happy.
A little bit scared.
A little bit, yeah,
You
of course.
personally.
I think if I said I were not, you should either not trust me or be very unhappy I'm in this job.
So what is the worst possible outcome?
There's like a set of very bad outcomes. One thing I'm particularly worried about is that these models could be used for large-scale disinformation. I am worried that these systems, now that they're getting better at writing computer code, could be used for offensive cyber attacks. And we're trying to talk about this. I think society needs time to adapt.
And how confident are you that what you've built won't lead to those outcomes?
Well, we'll adapt it. Also, I think
You'll adapt it as negative things occur?
For sure.
Yeah, I think that is a reasonable thing to say. We're putting these tools out here. They can't really do too much harm right now. Play with them. Everybody has access to them, and we have a dialogue about it. I think what Sam is saying is actually true. And I think they need to cite sources, say where they got the data from, and I think they need to get permission for the data they put into these algorithms. I think they're going to get sued. If they haven't already had, they probably have a gazillion lawsuits like queued up. I think there has to be a massive amount of lawsuits here as well to say, did you use the Wikipedia without permission and without credit? Because Wikipedia requires even though you can use the Wikipedia data set, you need to cite it, I think. So they're fine with you using it commercially, but they want a citation. I believe that's their Creative Commons license. And then I think the same is true for open source. If you use open source, you're allowed to use open source, but you have to reciprocate by giving back your changes. And I think you have to do a citation. And then there's images and stuff like that they're just wholesale stealing, or people's articles that they're stealing, websites without permission. And I think all of that has to be worked out. So I think they are in the ask for forgiveness, not permission, which is a tradition in Silicon Valley, whether it's Uber or Lyft going into a market, or DoorDash, or, name the company that kind of puts product out there and then says, let's see what happens, and we'll monitor it. I don't disagree with him on that. I do think they need to get ahead of citations, and other people are doing citations. To me, that matters a lot as a content creator. And I think as a society, we're going to get to the point, Rachel, where we actually say that if you produce content on the internet and it's produced in part by a language model, you're going to have to say this was done by a language model. I think disclosure of this is computer generated versus what's real, just like in a documentary, they tell you, hey, this isn't actually people's voices. This is a simulation, right? This is a reenactment, rather. So the reason they do the reenactment is so they don't get sued on the back end. So if something's a reenactment and they're having characters do voiceover based on conversations that, may or may not actually be accurately transcribed, they say this is a reenactment based partially on facts. This is based on a true story, but not actually the true story. That analogy should come to articles. So if BuzzFeed is going to do their listicles, it should say right at the top, this was produced with ChatGPT4, and this human, here's the byline of the human. This is the byline of the human who edited what the ChatGPT4 made. And it should link to the original ChatGPT4 citation. Here's what ChatGPT4 gave me, and here's where ChatGPT4 got it from. That would be a nice regulate yourself. So you can either be regulated by the government and the law, or you can kind of preemptively regulate yourself. That would be a nice way to regulate yourself, I think, and avoid that. I made a bunch of trades. J Trading's back.
Let's see it.
Okay.
I see it.